Welcome to the best of first-person episodes from Phantoms and Monsters. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads.
An experiencer's realization of events. I was working alone finishing a house at a fairly remote area near Littlefort, British Columbia, keeping my own hours. The house had wood heat. The time was midwinter in 1988 with a foot of compact snow on the ground. I worked out of a small wood shop close to the house. My schedule was somewhat erratic, so I kept a log book of what type of work was done and how many hours labor I had performed each day. This book was updated daily or at least every other day. I had been working there about 5 weeks. I had been off to town the previous weekend picking up supplies and had returned Sunday night. Monday I was working in the shop and things were going well. The next thing I remember I was standing in the house, confused as if I had just come out of a fog. I did not recall how I got there, I just seemed to appear. The house looked dusty and unlived in, like when you come home from a holiday and no one has been around. I felt I could not get my bearings as if I had just had an electric shock. I could not figure out what day it is. I turned on the radio and it was Friday morning, about 10:30 a.m. I tried to reason out what was going on, to get my bearings, and I could not. Oddly, my log book was open to that day, Friday. What had I been doing? I asked myself. I turned the book to Thursday and there was nothing written. Oh well, I said to myself, this occasionally happened, usually I write every day. I turned to Wednesday, nothing. I was starting to worry, I had never missed 2 days before. I turned to Tuesday and nothing, Monday nothing. I went to the previous Friday, before going to town, and looked at the work written. This was the last work done. I could remember nothing from Monday noon. I checked the shop and everything was as it should be as of Monday. Nothing has been done since Monday noon. Back to the house. The food I packed in the fridge Sunday night had not been touched. The firewood I stacked Sunday night against the house was there, so there was no wood burned, yet the house was not freezing. The house was in a state of stasis, not cold but not warm. I examined myself and I was warm and dry, I had not been out in the snow. I looked at my vehicle and the tracks in the snow. I could see that I had not driven since Sunday, and no one had driven in. There were no footprints in the snow, but mine. I was not hungry or dehydrated, yet I was wearing the same clothes as I was on Monday. I was not smelly or dirty. I now feel that I was under a post-hypnotic suggestion because a voice in my head said over and over, I must have been here working. I must have been here working. On and on. Within an hour of appearing back on Monday, I falsely wrote in work hours for the missing 4 days. This still bothers me since I pride myself on my honesty. During the writing I knew I had not done the work because there was nothing done. The work was linear, one step after another, and I was clearly inventing false labor. Yet I continued. I kept this log book for years, yet my falsehood was so effective that I could not identify which week this occurred. Eventually I threw the book out since I could not decipher it, and it just bothered me more. Life went on and I convinced myself that it had just been fatigue, in spite of the surrounding evidence. 6 months later I had a dream where I was back, and I knew it was the Monday of the event. I was in my shop and a voice in my head told me that I should go to the lake. It seemed like it was my idea. I walked to the lake and looked up. There was a hole in the sky, somewhat like an enormous Saturn. It was as if I could see through to the stars, as if a portal. The stars were brilliant and dense. I was confused as to what I was seeing, not a solid object but a void. I stared, then the thought came, I'm seeing a UFO. I was happy and excited. I had always wanted to see one. The millisecond I had the thought, an electric shock shot through me from my head to my toes, and I was awake sitting up in my bed. This all happened at the same time. I immediately realized that I knew what happened the winter before. Oddly enough, I had not even been dwelling on it much.
Daydreaming or lost time. In 2013, I was driving back from a visit to my mother's house, about 60 miles, a trip I made around 3 times a month. Part of this involved driving along the A13 in Essex, UK. This evening, still daylight, I was driving westbound. I passed over the turn-off for Tilbury, and 1 mile later, passed the exit for Grays, and a further mile took me to the point where the lakeside shopping mall traffic joined the A13. This is an area I know very well, and have often been shopping in the lakeside mall. Another half-mile took me over the M25 motorway and onto the final stretch home. Suddenly, I realized that something was wrong. Where the traffic had been light to medium, it had now become very light, and I noticed that I was crossing over the Tilbury exit or flyover. I had suddenly lost 2.5 miles of travel. The radio was still playing the same program, and I was driving in the correct lane, at a normal speed, about 60 miles per hour, with the nearest traffic probably about 200 to 300 meters both in front and behind. I have never used drugs and drink very sparingly, never before driving. Nothing out of the ordinary has ever happened to me before. I have always put it down to a brain fart, and have never really shared this with anyone before, take it as you will. Accept. Reject. Call me a storyteller, this is a true experience.
Strange sounds and lost time. I was fishing at the end of May, beginning of June 2009. Where I was fishing was the middle of nowhere, the odd farm, but no shops or pubs. I settled down for the night about 1:30 or 2 a.m. in my bivy tent when a strange thing happened. I heard like a chitter-chattering, talking, but loads of voices at same time. I couldn't make out what was being said, but it scared the crap out of me. My brother was in the next swim, so I went to see if he knew what it was, but I couldn't move for the life of me. It was like I was frozen to my bed chair. I couldn't shout or anything. I've never felt like this ever before or after. It was like time had flashed by as the next thing I remember it was 6 a.m. and was just getting light. Now I have started to have dream-like flashbacks and see things I cannot explain. The main vision is of a three-fingered hand, pointy finger like a lizard claw. But the strange part is what would be the palm of the hand is an opening with tiny wiggly things going all the way around it. And more recently I've started seeing an eye. It's jet black, teardrop shaped and like a greenish brown skin tone. I don't know if this is linked, but me and my missus were trying for another baby since 2005 without joy. Then my partner fell pregnant within 2 weeks of this happening, and my babe was born with a rare genetic disorder. Only 80 cases in UK. I don't know if it's anything to do with this or not. In fact, I don't even know if anything really happened to me. But it is playing in my head. I don't drink or do drugs. I don't think I'm going mad, but do sometimes wonder. Any help or advice would be great, please.
Time loss. My friend and I were hanging out at my house. It was about noon and we were talking about something and decided to go for a walk down the street. We would have said, up the hill and back. There was a dip in the road and then the road went up a hill. We would often walk it when we were bored or talking about something. This was probably the same time period as the lights, between 1987 and 1990, and it was in the summer because I remember wearing a t-shirt. My dad asked us where we were going, and I told him just up the hill and back. He said not to be gone for too long, although I don't remember why. He and I walked up the hill and back. It was at most 15 minutes. But when we got back, my dad was furious and said he was about to call the police since we'd been gone so long. Had he not looked so mad, I would have thought he was joking. Then he said my friend had to get home because either his grandma or mom was freaking out and kept calling. I used to wear a watch back then and looked at it. Only about 15 minutes passed, so I was even more confused, but when I got inside the house all the clocks were almost 4 hours later than my watch. I remember going up and down the hill countless times that summer with my friend trying to figure out what happened, and neither of us could. Thinking about it, that was probably the summer of 1989 or 1990, because my friend and I stopped hanging out shortly after that.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.